The massive doors of Concordia Prime opened with a heavy sound that echoed through the docking bay. Ambassador Dewan stepped out of the human transport ship, his dark diplomatic suit perfectly pressed. Behind him walked 4 individuals in matching formal uniforms. They moved with quiet confidence, their eyes scanning the crowded station with careful attention. Security Chief Vexthar watched the human arrival from his observation post high above the docking area. His 6 arms worked across multiple data screens, checking each delegation as they entered the station. The annual Summit of Species always brought stress to his security team. 47 different species, each with their own guards, weapons, and security protocols. It was a nightmare of coordination, but something about the human delegation caught his attention. He zoomed in his visual sensors on the 4 guards walking behind Ambassador Dewan. They wore no armor. No visible weapons hung from their belts. No energy shields shimmered around their bodies. They carried nothing but small communication devices. Vexthar felt confusion ripple through his neural network. Every other species brought armed security. The Scarth warriors carried plasma rifles and wore thick battle armor. The insectoid cliques had energy weapons built into their carapaces. Even the peaceful luminous species brought ceremonial guards with defensive shields. But the humans, they looked like they were attending a formal dinner, not protecting a diplomatic ambassador. On the main floor of the docking bay, Hyunwoo led the human security team through the crowd. He was the senior guard, 36 years old, with a calm face that revealed nothing. His eyes moved constantly, noting exits, counting other security personnel, measuring distances. Behind him, Ji-won walked with light steps despite her formal shoes. She was the youngest guard at 28. But her awareness matched anyone twice her age. Taemin brought up the rear, his military background visible in his perfect posture and economical movements. A group of Scarth warriors noticed the humans passing by. The Scarth were large reptilian creatures standing over 8 feet tall when fully upright. Their scales gleamed under the station lights and their claws clicked against the metal floor. One of them nudged his companion and pointed at the human guards. "Look at those tiny creatures," the Scarth growled in his own language, though the translation devices made his words clear to everyone nearby. "They bring no weapons. Are humans so foolish they think words alone will protect them?" His companions laughed, a sound like rocks grinding together. Several other species turned to look. The bird-like Avros delegates tilted their heads, their feathered crests rising in curiosity. A cluster of cliques stopped their chittering conversation to observe. Hyunwoo heard every word. His expression did not change. He simply guided Ambassador Dewan toward the diplomatic quarter without breaking stride. Ji-won allowed herself a small smile but said nothing. Taemin's face remained as still as stone. Ambassador Dewan reached his assigned quarters and turned to his security team. "I assume you heard our Scarth friends?" "Yes, Ambassador," Hyunwoo replied quietly. "They are entitled to their opinions." "They think we are weak," Dewan said. "'Twas not a question." "Many species make that mistake initially," Ji-won offered. "It usually corrects itself." The ambassador nodded. "Let us hope it corrects itself peacefully this time. I want no incidents at this summit. We are here to negotiate mining rights, not to prove ourselves to skeptics." "Understood, sir," all 3 guards replied in unison. In the security center, Vexthar continued his analysis of the human guards. He pulled up their files, sent ahead by Earth's diplomatic corps as required by Council protocol. The information was surprisingly sparse. Names, ages, basic physical data, security clearances, training certificates from various human institutions, but no weapons certifications, no combat records, no military ranks. One of Vexthar's assistants, a young officer from the aquatic deep folk species, gestured toward the screens. "Chief, should we issue the humans emergency weapons?" They appeared to have arrived unprepared. Vexthar considered this. "Check the regulations. Are delegates required to bring armed security?" The assistant worked through the database. "No, Chief. The regulations state that each species may provide security according to their own protocols. Armed guards are recommended but not mandatory." "Then we leave them be," Vexthar decided, "but increase monitoring on the human quarters. If they are targets because of their apparent vulnerability, I want to know immediately." The opening ceremony took place in the Grand Assembly Hall, a massive chamber that could accommodate all 47 species comfortably. Each delegation sat in specially designed sections that matched their environmental needs. The humans occupied a modest area near the center, their small numbers making them almost invisible among the larger groups. Ambassador Thornick of the Scarth Empire took the speaker's platform. He was enormous even by Scarth standards, his scales decorated with battle scars that his people considered marks of honor. His speech began with the usual diplomatic pleasantries, but his tone grew sharp when he reached the topic of territorial expansion. The outer reaches contain resources that belong to the strong, Thornick declared, his voice booming through the translation system. Species who cannot defend their claims have no right to make them. The Council must recognize that military capability determines legitimate territory. Several species nodded in agreement, others shifted uncomfortably. The Lumina delegates looked distressed, their bioluminescent skin flickering with worried colors. Thornick's eyes swept the assembly and landed on the human section. I see that Earth has sent representatives to claim mining rights in Sector 7. Yet I observe their security detail carries no weapons. How does Earth expect to defend these claims? With polite conversation? Laughter erupted from the Scarth section and scattered among other delegations. Day One stood slowly, requesting recognition to speak. The assembly moderator acknowledged him. Ambassador Thornick raises an interesting point, Day One said calmly. His voice was quiet, but the acoustics of the hall carried it clearly. He equates visible weapons with capability. This is understandable, but perhaps incomplete. Humanity's approach to security emphasizes preparedness over display. We find this sufficiently effective for our needs. Sufficiently effective? Thornick's laugh was harsh. Perhaps Earth has forgotten that space is dangerous. The strong survive. The weak make excuses. Perhaps, Day One agreed with a slight smile. Time will reveal which approach serves best. We look forward to productive negotiations with all species, including the Scarth Empire. He sat down and the ceremony continued. But Thornick's gaze lingered on the human section, his eyes narrowed with contempt. That evening, as the delegates dispersed to their quarters, Vexthar reviewed footage of the ceremony. He watched the exchange between Day One and Thornick multiple times. Something about the human ambassador's calm response bothered him. There was no anger, no defensiveness, no attempt to prove strength. Just quiet confidence. Vexthar switched his view to the human guards. During Thornick's mockery, none of them had reacted visibly, but careful frame-by-frame analysis showed subtle changes. Hyunwoo had shifted his weight almost imperceptibly, changing his center of balance. Jiwon's hands had moved from hanging loosely at her sides to resting near her belt. Taemin had adjusted his position to have a clearer line of sight to the Scarth section. These were not the movements of frightened or unprepared individuals. They were the tiny adjustments of people ready to act if necessary. But act how? Without weapons, what could they possibly do against armed warriors? Vexthar did not know the answer, and that uncertainty made him deeply uncomfortable. In his 3 decades of security work, he had learned to assess threats accurately. But the humans defied his assessment. They appeared vulnerable yet behaved with confidence. They looked unprepared yet moved with purpose. He made a note in his personal log. Human security protocols require further observation. Threat level, unknown. In their quarters, the human guards conducted their evening briefing. Hyunwoo reviewed the day's observations while his team listened. Thornick will be a problem, he said quietly. He has decided we are weak. That makes us either targets or obstacles to whatever he is planning. Should we request backup from the ship? Jiwon asked. Hyunwoo shook his head. 4 of us is exactly right. More would look like escalation. We maintain current protocols. Taemin spoke for the first time in hours. They will test us. Probably soon. Yes, Hyunwoo agreed. And when they do, we respond according to our training. Minimal force. Maximum effect. No fatalities if possible. And if not possible, Jiwon asked. Hyunwoo's expression hardened slightly. Then we do what humans have always done. We adapt and overcome, but we prefer to make friends rather than enemies. The 3 guards nodded. They had all heard these principles countless times during their training. Now they would have to live them while the galaxy watched. 3 days passed with tense negotiations. The summit discussions moved slowly, with each species protecting their interests in the outer reaches. The human delegation participated actively but quietly, presenting survey data and legal arguments without raising their voices or making threats. Ambassador Thornick grew increasingly frustrated. His aggressive tactics worked with most species. Loud declarations and implicit threats usually made smaller delegations back down, but Daewon refused to be intimidated. He responded to every Scarth challenge with calm logic and precise data. It was infuriating. On the third night, Thornick decided to take a more direct approach. He learned that Daewon often used the diplomatic lounge late in the evening to review documents. The lounge was a neutral space where delegates could meet informally. It was also far from the main security center, with minimal monitoring. Thornick arrived at the lounge with two of his warriors. They found Daewon sitting alone at a corner table, his datapad glowing softly in the dim light. The human ambassador looked up as the three Scarth entered. His expression remained neutral. "Ambassador Thornick," Daewon said politely, "would you care to join me?" "I do not join prey," Thornick growled. "I came to make something clear to you, human. The outer reaches belong to the Scarth Empire. Your mining claims are worthless. Withdraw them tomorrow or there will be consequences." Daewon set down his datapad carefully. "Ambassador, threats are not productive. The Council has procedures for resolving territorial disputes. Let us follow them." "Procedures," Thornick spat the word. "You hide behind Council rules because you are weak. Your species brings unarmed guards to a summit of warriors. This tells me everything about Earth's true strength." One of the Scarth warriors drew his plasma pistol. The weapon hummed with contained energy. The other warrior did the same. Both weapons pointed casually toward Daewon, not directly aimed but clearly ready. "Perhaps a demonstration would help you understand reality," Thornick said. He reached out with one clawed hand toward Daewon's shoulder. Hyunwoo appeared between them. No one had seen him enter the lounge. No door had opened with its usual sound. He was simply there, standing perfectly still, his right hand resting lightly on Thornick's extended arm. "Ambassador Thornick," Hyunwoo said quietly. "Please do not touch Ambassador Daewon." Thornick stared at the human guard. Up close, the size difference was dramatic. Thornick stood over 8 feet tall and weighed perhaps 400 pounds of muscle and armored scale. Hyunwoo was barely 6 feet, weighing maybe 180 pounds. A child could see who would win a physical confrontation. "Remove your hand," Thornick ordered, "or I will remove it for you." Hyunwoo did not move. His expression remained calm, almost relaxed. But something about his posture made Thornick hesitate. The human guard was not tense or prepared to flee. He simply stood, balanced and ready, his hand still resting on Thornick's arm. The Scarth warrior to Thornick's left raised his plasma pistol, pointing it directly at Daewon. "Step aside, human, or we will—" Jiwon stood beside the warrior. Her hand rested gently on his weapon arm, her fingers positioned near his elbow. She had crossed the room without making a sound. She smiled pleasantly at the startled Scarth. "Your weapon safety is disengaged," she said helpfully. "That is dangerous in a diplomatic area." The warrior tried to pull his arm away. Jiwon's hand stayed where it was, moving with him effortlessly. Her grip looked light, almost delicate. But the warrior's arm would not move the way he wanted. His weapon pointed harmlessly at the floor. The second Scarth warrior spun, bringing his plasma pistol to bear on this new threat. Taemin stood behind him, having somehow crossed the entire lounge without anyone noticing. The warrior found Taemin's hand resting on his shoulder, thumb pressing into a specific point near his neck. "Muscle Group 7, Taemin said quietly, as if teaching a class. "Apply pressure here, and the arm experiences temporary neural confusion. Not permanent, not painful, but effective." The warrior's gun hand trembled and lowered involuntarily. His eyes widened in shock. Thornick tried to pull his arm back from Hyunwoo's light grip. He used his full strength, the kind of pull that could tear a metal door from its hinges. Hyunwoo's hand moved with the motion, redirecting it slightly. Thornick found himself stumbling forward off balance, his own momentum working against him. The human guard had not pushed or pulled, merely guided. Thornick caught himself before falling. Rage colored his features red beneath his scales. We dare nothing," Hyunwoo interrupted softly. "We are simply preventing a diplomatic incident. Ambassador Daewon is under our protection. You are welcome to discuss mining rights with him respectfully, but threats and physical contact are not acceptable." For a long moment no one moved. The 3 Scarth warriors were armed and armored. The 3 human guards wore formal uniforms and carried nothing. Yet somehow the balance of power in the room had shifted completely. Thornick made his decision. He stepped back and Hyunwoo's hand released his arm immediately. "This is not finished," the Scarth ambassador growled. "Negotiations continue tomorrow at 900 hours, Daiwan said calmly from his seat. "We look forward to productive discussion." Thornik gestured sharply to his warriors. They holstered their weapons and followed him from the lounge. At the door, Thornik turned back. "You are clever, humans, but cleverness will not protect you forever." The three Scarth left. Hyunwoo, Jiwon, and Taiman remained perfectly still until the door closed. Then simultaneously all three relaxed their postures slightly. "Ambassador, are you harmed?" Hyunwoo asked. "No," Daewon replied, "though I suspect we have made an enemy tonight." "He was already an enemy," Jiwon observed. "Tonight he simply became an informed enemy." "That may be worse," Daewon said. "An ignorant enemy can be managed with patience. An informed enemy becomes dangerous," Taemin finally spoke. "They will analyze what happened here. Frame by frame, they will see exactly how we moved and try to understand it." "Let them look," Hyunwoo said. "Understanding what we did and being able to counter it are very different things." In the security center, Vexthar was already reviewing footage from the lounge. The room's basic monitoring had captured everything. He watched the recording 3 times in normal speed, then began analyzing it frame by frame. The human guards had moved with impossible efficiency. Hyunwoo had entered through a service corridor that sensors showed had not opened. Yet there he was, appearing in the frame like he had materialized. Jiwon had crossed 12 feet of open space in the time it took the Scarth warrior to raise his weapon. Taemin had approached from behind without making a sound loud enough to register on audio sensors. But what disturbed Vexthar most was what happened next. The humans had controlled 3 armed Scarth warriors without striking a single blow. They used leverage, positioning, and knowledge of anatomy to completely negate a superior force. It was not strength. It was not technology. It was something else entirely. Vexthar's assistant appeared at his side. "Chief, should we file an incident report?" "On whom?" Vexthar asked. "The Scarth who drew weapons in a diplomatic zone? Or the humans who prevented violence without using any?" The assistant had no answer. Vexthar continued watching the footage. He zoomed in on Hyunwoo's hand placement on Thornik's arm. The human's fingers rested on specific points, positioned with precision. When Thornik pulled away, those fingers shifted slightly, maintaining contact with what looked like nerve clusters or joint vulnerabilities. "Pull up anatomical data on Scarth physiology," Vexthar ordered. "Cross-reference with human guard training files." The data appeared on screen. Vexthar felt something close to shock ripple through his system. The humans had detailed anatomical maps of every council species. Skeletal structure, muscle attachment points, nerve clusters, joint mechanics. The files were labeled as defensive reference materials. "They study us," Vexthar said aloud. "Every species. They learn where we are vulnerable. For attack purposes?" His assistant asked nervously. "For defense," Vexthar corrected. "Look at the notes. Optimal pressure points for non-lethal restraint. Joint manipulation for threat neutralization without permanent damage. Nerve clusters for temporary motor function disruption. This is not how you kill someone. This is how you stop them without causing lasting harm." The assistant looked confused. Why would they limit themselves that way? Vexthar did not answer immediately. He was beginning to understand something profound about humans. They had clearly studied violence extensively. The precision of their movements showed countless hours of training. But that training focused on control rather than destruction. It was the approach of a species that had become very good at violence and then decided there must be a better way. "Increase monitoring on all Scarth movements," Vexthar ordered. "Thornik will not accept this embarrassment quietly. He will retaliate." "Should we warn the humans?" Vexthar considered this. "No. I suspect they are already prepared." In their quarters, the 3 human guards were indeed preparing. They reviewed station layouts, noting all access points to the human delegation's areas. They identified potential ambush locations and established response protocols. "Thornik will come at us again," Hyunwoo said. "But next time he will bring more warriors and have a plan." The Council Security Committee convened the next morning in emergency session. Vexthar presented his report on the lounge incident, showing the footage to the assembled representatives. The reactions varied by species, but all showed surprise. "This is unprecedented," declared Committee Chairman Vexel, an elderly member of the crystalline lithos species. Armed security personnel were neutralized by unarmed individuals. We must understand how this is possible. The humans used physical manipulation techniques, Vexthar explained. They employed knowledge of anatomy and leverage to control superior force without weapons. Is this some form of biological advantage? Asked the Avros representative. Enhanced strength or reflexes we were not aware of. Vexthar displayed human biological data. No, humans are physically weaker than most council species. Their reaction times are average. They possess no natural weapons or armor, yet they train extensively in what they call martial arts. Physical combat techniques refined over thousands of years. The committee members looked at each other with confusion. Most species had abandoned hand-to-hand combat when they developed energy weapons. Why would anyone spend time learning to fight without technology? I propose we request a formal demonstration, Vexel said. We should understand the capabilities of all security forces operating on this station. If human methods are effective, perhaps other species could benefit from learning them. The committee agreed. Vexthar was tasked with arranging a demonstration in the station's training facility. It would be voluntary and educational, not a competition, but everyone understood that reputations would be made or destroyed in that arena. Ambassador Daewon received the request that afternoon. He read it carefully, then looked up at Hyunwoo. They want to see what you can do. Yes, sir. This could go badly. If you fail to meet expectations, Earth's diplomatic position becomes weaker. We will not fail, Hyunwoo said quietly. That confidence again, Daewon smiled slightly. Very well. I will accept on one condition. Ji-won does the demonstration. Hyunwoo raised an eyebrow. Sir, she is our youngest guard. She appears least threatening. If Ji-won can demonstrate our capabilities effectively, the impact will be greater than if you or Taemin do it. The council expects human males to be stronger. Showing them a woman can do this will make the lesson clearer. Ji-won stepped forward. I am honored, Ambassador. What are my parameters? Non-lethal techniques only. We are here to educate, not intimidate. Show them control, precision, and restraint. Make them understand that we choose not to harm, not that we cannot. 2 days later, the training facility was packed with observers. Every delegation had sent representatives. The Scarth contingent was particularly large, with Thornick himself present in the front row. His expression showed contempt, but his eyes were watchful. The demonstration began with other species. A Scarth warrior named Keithak entered first, wearing full combat armor. He carried a plasma rifle and energy shield. Station staff activated combat drones programmed to simulate attackers. Keithak's demonstration was impressive. He moved with predatory grace, his weapons firing with precision. Drones fell in sparking pieces. When they attacked from multiple angles, his shield deflected their strikes while his rifle eliminated threats. The assembled crowd made appreciative sounds. This was martial prowess as they understood it. Next came a clique soldier named Zik. The insectoid warrior demonstrated hive mind coordination, calling on the mental network connecting all clique's individuals. Multiple drones attacked simultaneously, but Zik moved as if he knew exactly where each one would strike before it moved. His energy weapons eliminated threats with mechanical efficiency. An Avros guard called Cirrus showed aerial combat techniques, her wings carrying her above drone attacks while laser arrays built into her arm feathers struck with pinpoint accuracy. It was beautiful and deadly. Then Ji-won entered the arena. She wore her standard diplomatic uniform, simple, formal, with no armor or padding. She carried nothing. No weapons, no shields, no visible equipment of any kind. She stood in the center of the arena floor, waiting. The crowd grew quiet. Some species whispered to each other. Thornick leaned forward, his eyes narrowed. Begin when ready. Vexthar's voice came through the arena speakers. The same combat drones that had attacked the other guards activated. They moved toward Ji-won from multiple directions, their weapons armed with training-level energy bursts that would hurt, but not kill. Ji-won moved. The first drone fired from her left. She shifted her weight, turning her body just enough that the energy bolt passed harmlessly beside her. Her hand shot out, striking the drone's sensor array with her palm. The drone spun away, disabled but intact. 2 more drones attacked from different angles. Ji-won dropped low, letting their fire pass over her. As they corrected their aim, she was already moving. Her legs swept out, catching one drone and knocking it into the other. Both fell to the floor, tangled together. The observers leaned forward. This was different from what they had seen before. The other guards had destroyed threats. G1 was redirecting them, using their own momentum against them. More drones entered the arena. 6 attacked simultaneously, trying to overwhelm her with numbers. G1 moved between them like water flowing around stones. Each movement was economical, precise, and perfectly timed. A drone would fire where she had been a moment before. She would already be somewhere else, her hand or foot striking a control surface or joint, disabling the machine without destroying it. She is not fighting them, the Lumina observer said softly. She is dancing with them. 15 minutes later, 20 disabled drones lay scattered around the arena floor. Not one had been destroyed. All could be repaired and used again. G1 stood in the center, her breathing slightly elevated but still controlled. Not a scratch marked her uniform. The crowd was silent. Then from the back, someone started a slow rhythmic sound that their species used for appreciation. Others joined in, creating a strange symphony of approval from dozens of different species. Thornik did not make any sound. His face was unreadable. Vexthar entered the arena. Thank you, Guard G1. That was most educational. Now if you would answer some questions. Of course, G1 said calmly. An Avros delegate called out first. How did you move so quickly? Our sensors show no biological enhancements. Practice, G1 replied simply. Human martial arts emphasize repetition until movements become instinctive. I have trained in these techniques since I was 6 years old. 22 years of daily practice. A clique's representative clicked loudly before speaking. You disabled threats without destroying them. Why limit yourself this way? Because destroyed enemies cannot become friends, G1 said. And intact equipment can be reused. Efficiency is not just about speed or power. It is about achieving objectives with minimum waste. The questions continued. How did she know where the drones would fire? Training in reading body language and movement patterns adapted for machines. How did she strike so precisely? Study of structural weak points and mechanical vulnerabilities. How did she avoid exhaustion facing so many opponents? Breath control and energy conservation techniques developed over millennia of human martial tradition. Finally, Thornik stood. You faced drones. Machines are predictable. Could you do this against living warriors? G1 met his gaze steadily. Yes, prove it, Vexthar intervened quickly. Ambassador Thornik, this is a demonstration, not a challenge match. I am not challenging, Thornik said smoothly. I am offering to help make the demonstration more realistic. My warrior Kethak could provide a live opponent for the human to practice on. If she is truly skilled, she has nothing to fear. The trap was obvious. If G1 declined, she appeared afraid. If she accepted and lost, human credibility was destroyed. If she accepted and won, she would humiliate a Scarth warrior in front of his peers, making Thornik an open enemy. Daewon started to stand, ready to intervene, but G1 spoke first. I accept, but I request modified rules. Kethak may use his full strength in combat techniques. I will only use defensive techniques. No strikes to harm, only to control. The match ends when Kethak submits or when I've maintained control for 30 seconds. Does this seem fair? Thornik's smile showed too many teeth. Very fair. Kethak entered the arena. The large Scarth warrior removed his armor and weapons. Even without them, he was massive and intimidating. He stood across from G1, who looked tiny in comparison. Begin, Vexthar said reluctantly. Kethak charged immediately, using his superior size and speed to close distance. His clawed hand swept toward G1's head with enough force to knock her unconscious. She slipped inside his reach, her hand catching his wrist and redirecting the strike past her body. Kethak's momentum carried him forward. G1's foot hooked behind his ankle. The Scarth warrior fell hard on the arena floor. He rolled immediately, trying to grab her legs. G1 stepped back, letting him grasp empty air. As Kethak pushed himself up, she was already positioned behind him. Her arm slipped around his thick neck, not choking but controlling. Her other hand pressed specific points on his shoulder and arm. Kethak tried to stand. His legs would not respond properly. He tried to pull G1's arm away. His arm strength was suddenly absent. Confusion crossed his face, then shock. He could not feel parts of his body. Station Intelligence Officer Mara worked the night shift, monitoring communications across Concordia Prime. Most nights were routine. Diplomatic chatter, personal messages home, standard security checks. But tonight, something caught her attention. A brief encrypted burst transmission had gone from the Scarth quarters to a location off station. The encryption was sophisticated, But Mara's systems were better. She broke it open and felt her blood chill. The message contained coordinates, timing information, and a simple phrase: execute when they gather. Mara immediately contacted Vexthar, pulling him from sleep. Within minutes, the security chief was in the intelligence center, reviewing the intercept. Pull up all Scarth communications for the past week, he ordered. Run pattern analysis. The data appeared on screens. Mara highlighted correlations. 3 separate encrypted bursts, all to the same off-station location. That location is registered as a civilian transport, but energy signatures suggest military-grade weapon systems. Who sent these messages? Vexthar demanded. That is the problem, Chief. They originated from inside our own security network, from Scarth guards assigned to station patrol duty. Vexthar felt a cold realization settle over him. Thornik had not just brought his own warriors. He had infiltrated the station's security forces, and now those infiltrators were communicating with an armed vessel. What is the target? Vexthar asked. Mara pulled up schedule data. Tomorrow is the closing ceremony. All delegates will gather in the Grand Assembly Hall. If I were planning an attack, that would be the moment. Maximum targets, minimal escape routes. Sound general alert. Full security lockdown. All delegates confined to quarters immediately. Deploy armed response teams to every critical junction. Alarms began blaring throughout Concordia Prime. Emergency protocols activated. Bulkhead doors slammed shut, dividing the station into secure sections. Delegates received urgent messages ordering them to remain in their quarters under guard. But Thornik had planned carefully. The moment the alarm sounded, his infiltrators acted. Explosions rocked the diplomatic wing. Not large enough to breach the hull, but sufficient to create chaos. Emergency systems screamed warnings. Fire suppression, systems activated, filling corridors with foam and gas. Lights flickered and failed in several sections. Armed figures moved through the confusion. They wore station security uniforms, but their weapons were aimed at the guards who were supposed to be their allies. 3 genuine security officers fell before anyone realized what was happening. In the security center, Vexthar watched multiple screens showing coordinated attacks across 4 different station sections. How many infiltrators are there? At least 12, Mara reported. Possibly more. They are moving toward the diplomatic quarters. Chief, they are targeting the weaker delegations first. Vexthar understood immediately. Thornik wanted casualties. Dead ambassadors would end the summit in chaos, discrediting the council itself, and he was targeting species known to have minimal security: the Lumina, the peaceful deepfolk, the scholarly Lithos, and the humans. Dispatch all available forces to protect the vulnerable delegations, Vexthar ordered. Prioritize life preservation over property protection, and get me a communication line to the human guards immediately. But in the human quarters, Hyunwoo was already moving. The explosions had awakened him instantly. Years of training brought him from sleep to full awareness in seconds. He activated his communication device. Jiwon, Taimin, Seokjin, report status. 3 voices responded immediately. All were alert and ready. Seokjin was the 4th member of their team, a quiet man in his 40s who specialized in tactical coordination. Ambassador is secure in his quarters, Taimin reported. Reinforced door. Emergency protocols active. Good. Jiwon, take position outside the ambassador's door. Defend that location. Taimin with me. Seokjin, coordinate with station security. We need to know where the attackers are and where the vulnerable delegates are. Understood, Seokjin replied. Station security is reporting multiple breaches. Armed insurgents in sections 4, 7, 9, and 12. The Lumina delegation is in Section 7 with minimal protection. Hyunwoo made his decision instantly. Taimin, we are going to Section 7. The Lumina cannot defend themselves. Jiwon holds our position. Seokjin, get me a clear route. Hyunwoo, there are at least 4 armed Scarth between you and Section 7, Seokjin warned. Then we go through them, Hyunwoo said simply. Move now. The 2 human guards left their quarters at a run. The station corridors were filled with emergency lighting, alarm sounds, and drifting fire suppression foam. They moved quickly but carefully, aware that enemies could be around any corner. They found the first group of insurgents in Corridor 7 Alpha. 3 Scarth warriors in station security uniforms armed with plasma rifles. They were forcing open the door to the Lumina quarters, where peaceful bioluminescent beings huddled in terror. Hyunwoo and Taemin did not announce themselves. They simply acted. Taemin went low, sliding across the foam-slicked floor. His foot connected with the knee joint of the nearest Scarth. The warrior's leg buckled. As he fell, Taemin's hand struck his weapon arm, using the Scarth's own falling momentum to slam his hand against the wall. The plasma rifle clattered free. Hyunwoo went high. He jumped using a wall support to gain height and came down on the second Scarth from above. His hands found pressure points on the warrior's thick neck. The Scarth dropped his weapon and clawed at Hyunwoo, but his arms were already losing strength as his nervous system was disrupted. The third Scarth had time to turn and aim. His plasma rifle came up, finger on the trigger. Taemin threw the first Scarth's dropped weapon, not at the standing warrior, but at his rifle. The two weapons collided. The plasma discharge went wide, burning a hole in the ceiling. Before the Scarth could recover, Hyunwoo was there. A precise strike to the warrior's elbow. A sweep behind his legs. The Scarth hit the floor hard. Hyunwoo's knee pressed into his back, one hand controlling his weapon arm, the other positioned on his neck. "Stay down," Hyunwoo said quietly. "We do not want to hurt you, but we will if you continue." All 3 Scarth warriors lay on the floor, disarmed and controlled. The entire confrontation had taken less than 15 seconds. Hyunwoo opened the Lumina quarters. The frightened delegates looked out at him. "You are safe now," he said gently. "Stay inside until station security arrives." Seokjin's voice came through their communications. "Multiple insurgent groups moving on other delegations. Station security is overwhelmed. Hyunwoo, I need you mobile. I will coordinate your movements to where you are needed most." For the next 30 minutes, Hyunwoo and Taemin moved through Concordia Prime like ghosts. Seokjin fed them real-time intelligence, directing them to crisis points. They encountered and disabled 3 more groups of insurgents. Each time they used minimal force, precise technique, and complete control. A group of 4 Scarth trying to breach the Avros quarters found themselves facing Taemin. He used their own bulk against them, redirecting their charges into each other, creating a tangle of bodies and weapons. None were seriously injured, but all were incapacitated. 2 insurgents with demolition charges heading toward the main power core encountered Hyunwoo. He disabled both in seconds, using nerve strikes that left them conscious, but unable to move. He carefully removed the demolition charges and placed them in a secure container. Meanwhile, Ji-won held the human quarters. Twice, groups of insurgents attempted to breach the area. Both times they found a small woman who moved with impossible speed and precision. She protected not just the human ambassador but several other delegates who had fled to the human section when the attacks began. Her position became a safe zone in the chaos. Seokjin coordinated with Vexthar's security forces, creating a network of protected zones and safe corridors. His calm voice guided responses across the station, turning chaos into organized defense. But the most critical moment came when intelligence reported a large force of insurgents, 8 warriors led by one of Thornick's senior commanders, moving toward the medical bay where injured delegates and civilians had gathered. "That is too many," Seokjin said over the communication channel. "Hyunwoo, Taemin, you need to hold them until security reinforcements arrive. Can you delay 8 armed warriors?" Hyunwoo looked at Taemin. The other guard nodded once. "Yes," Hyunwoo said. "We can delay them." They reached the medical bay entrance before the insurgents. The corridor was narrow, limiting how many opponents could attack at once. Hyunwoo and Taemin positioned themselves carefully. When the 8 Scarth warriors rounded the corner and saw 2 unarmed humans blocking their path, they laughed. Their leader, a scarred veteran named Krask, raised his plasma rifle. "Move or die, humans." "Neither," Hyunwoo replied calmly. "You will not pass this point." Krask fired. Hyunwoo was already moving, the plasma bolt burning past where he had stood. Taemin went low, sliding forward. His movement was so unexpected that the Scarth did not react in time. Taemin's leg sweep took down the two warriors in front. They fell into the ones behind them. Hyunwoo used the confusion. He moved into the group, never stopping, always in motion. The Grand Assembly Hall filled slowly as delegates gathered for the emergency council session. The closing ceremony had been replaced with something more serious, a formal inquiry into the attack and a discussion of security protocols going forward. The mood was somber but respectful. Vexthar stood at the central podium presenting his complete analysis of the crisis. His report was thorough and detailed. The screen showed statistics, timelines, and casualty figures. 47 station security personnel responded to the insurgent attack, Vexthar stated. 12 were injured, 3 seriously. 5 civilian delegates suffered minor injuries during the initial explosions. No fatalities occurred among council members or station personnel. He paused, letting the significance of that sink in. This outcome is remarkable given the scale and coordination of the attack. The insurgents were well-armed, well-trained, and positioned to cause maximum casualties. That they failed is due primarily to the response effectiveness of various security forces. Vexthar displayed combat footage from different locations. Scarth station guards fighting insurgents. Click soldiers coordinating defense. Avros personnel evacuating civilians. All had performed well. Then he showed footage of the human guards in action. The assembled delegates watched in silence as the recordings played. Hyunwoo and Taemin facing 8 armed warriors. Ji-won holding a corridor against repeated attacks. Seokjin coordinating responses from the security center. Every movement was precise, controlled, and non-lethal. The human security team consisted of 4 individuals, Vexthar continued. They were responsible for protecting their own delegation, plus providing assistance to 7 other vulnerable delegations. They encountered and neutralized 23 hostile combatants. They suffered 0 casualties. More significantly, they inflicted 0 fatalities. Chairman Vexel leaned forward. Security Chief, please clarify. The humans faced lethal threats but chose not to respond with lethal force? That is correct, Vexthar confirmed. Despite multiple opportunities and clear justification for deadly response, the human guards used only disabling techniques. Every insurgent they encountered is alive and in custody, available for questioning and justice. Murmurs spread through the assembly. This was unprecedented. Most species' security doctrine emphasized overwhelming force against threats. The idea of showing restraint during actual combat seemed illogical. Ambassador Daewon was called to address the council. He stood at the speaker's platform, his formal robes pristine despite the previous night's chaos. Chairman, council members, I have been asked to explain human security philosophy. Daewon began. This is not a short explanation, but I will try to be clear. He paused, gathering his thoughts. My species has existed for approximately 200,000 years. For most of that time we fought each other, tribe against tribe, kingdom against kingdom, nation against nation. We became very efficient at killing our own kind. We developed weapons of incredible power. Stone gave way to bronze, bronze to iron, iron to steel. Bows became guns, became missiles, became nuclear weapons. The assembly listened intently. Many species had similar histories, though few as violent as humanity's appeared to be. About 15,000 years ago, Daewon continued, some humans began to realize that violence alone solved nothing permanent. We could kill our enemies, but their children would seek revenge. Victory through strength just created stronger enemies. So we began developing different approaches. He gestured to his guards standing along the wall. We call them martial arts. The literal translation means arts of Mars, named after our ancient god of war. But the deeper meaning is more complex. They are systems of combat designed not just to win, but to end conflict while preserving life. They are the application of thousands of years of experience in fighting, distilled into techniques that control rather than destroy. An elderly Lumina delegate spoke up, his bioluminescent body pulsing with curiosity. Ambassador Daewon, why would warriors choose to limit themselves? In battle, showing mercy to an enemy seems like a weakness that could lead to your own death. Daewon nodded. That is a logical concern. But consider this. What is the purpose of security? To eliminate threats, yes, but also to create stability and peace. A dead enemy is eliminated but teaches nothing. A defeated but living enemy can learn, change, and potentially become an ally. The guard who must kill has failed at a deeper level than the guard who can win without killing. He walked to the center of the platform, his voice growing stronger. My species learned this truth through terrible experience. We fought 2 massive global wars. Millions died. Cities were destroyed. When we finally developed weapons that could destroy our entire world, we stood at the edge of extinction. And in that moment we realized something profound. Being able to kill everyone was meaningless if it meant dying ourselves. True strength was not the capacity for destruction. True strength was the wisdom to choose another path. Daewon gestured to the screens showing footage of his guards. What you saw last night was not weakness or excessive mercy. It was control. My guards could have killed every insurgent they faced. The techniques to do so are part of their training. But they chose to disable instead because a living prisoner provides intelligence, faces justice, and perhaps learns from mistakes. A corpse provides none of these things. The Scarth section of the assembly was notably quiet. Thornick had been removed pending investigation, but his delegation remained. One of the younger Scarth representatives stood. Ambassador Daewon, you speak of learning from defeat. But in Scarth culture, defeat is shameful. A warrior who loses should die rather than live with dishonor. How can your philosophy work with species who think differently? Daewon smiled slightly. An excellent question. The answer is that my guards do not impose their philosophy on others. They simply act according to their own principles. Last night, your fellow Scarth, even those who attacked us, were treated with respect. They were defeated but not humiliated. They were disarmed but not murdered. Some may choose to feel shame. Others may choose to learn. That decision is theirs, not ours. We simply provide the opportunity. The young Scarth sat down slowly, clearly thinking about this. Vexthar spoke again. Ambassador, I have reviewed your guards' training records. They study the anatomy of every council species in detail. Some delegates have expressed concern that this knowledge could be used for assassination purposes. Yes, we study anatomy. Daewon agreed. We learn where joints bend, where nerves cluster, where pressure causes pain or unconsciousness. This knowledge is necessary for effective defense. But consider how we use it. My guards know exactly where to strike a Scarth to cause instant death. They also know where to strike to cause temporary paralysis without lasting damage. Which did they choose last night? He let the question hang in the air. Knowledge is not dangerous. The intent behind its use determines danger. A doctor studies anatomy to heal. A soldier studies anatomy to kill. A martial artist studies anatomy to control. We are martial artists who choose to protect rather than destroy. Chairman Vexil spoke thoughtfully. You mentioned that humans spent thousands of years learning to fight, then thousands more learning not to fight. This suggests a cultural evolution. Most council species developed advanced technology and moved beyond primitive combat. Humans seem to have made combat itself more sophisticated. Why? Daewon considered his answer carefully. Because we were very good at fighting, too good. Our technology advanced faster than our wisdom. We created weapons that could end our species before we learned how to stop being violent. So we had to develop that wisdom deliberately. Martial arts became more than combat training. They became philosophy, meditation, discipline, and art. They taught us patience, control, respect for opponents, and understanding that true victory preserves rather than destroys. He paused. Then added, we do not claim our way as superior to others. Many council species achieved peace through different paths. We simply offer our experience. For humanity, learning to not kill was harder than learning to kill, and that difficulty made the lesson more valuable. The council fell silent, processing this. Finally, Chairman Vexil spoke. I propose formal recognition of human security methodology as valid under council protocols. Furthermore, I propose the establishment of a cultural exchange program where willing species can learn these techniques. Is there any opposition? No one objected. The measure passed unanimously. After the session, Vexthar approached the human delegation. He found all 4 guards together for the first time, discussing the day's events quietly. I have a question, Vexthar said without preamble. Your people could dominate this council militarily. The skill you displayed suggests humans could defeat most species in personal combat. Why do you choose to serve as guards rather than conquerors? Hyunwoo answered. Because we spent 10,000 years conquering each other. We got very good at it. But every victory just created new enemies and new wars. We finally realized that the strongest warrior is not the one who defeats everyone. The strongest warrior is the one who does not need to fight because everyone respects their strength. Jiwon added, also, conquering is easy. Any species with weapons can conquer,